NFL week number 9 is officially in the books, and what a crazy week it was. In terms of picks, we went 8-6 last week, so just over 500, bringing our overall record to 84-52. There is a lot to talk about here. The Raiders' huge win with Antonio Pierce now as interim head coach. I wish I had the courage to pick them last week. I talked about it. I talked about the potential for the team to rally around Antonio Pierce, and with Josh McDaniels gone, I thought that was a possibility. But looking back at it now, the way the Giants have been playing, I wish I had picked them. But good on the Raiders and good on Antonio Pierce for rallying the troops and getting them ready to play that game against the Giants. Of course, Daniel Jones going down and Tommy DeVito playing a lot of that game definitely didn't make it any easier on them, but a big win is a big win, and the Raiders were able to do that. Josh Dobbs has, I think, become my favorite quarterback in the NFL right now. He comes off the bench, leads the Vikings to 31 points in a comeback win against the Falcons, and what is a decent defense. I mean, to put up that many points, with Kevin O'Connell basically in his ear before the snap, kind of explaining, what the reads were going to be, maybe what routes were going to be on what side, and just how the concepts and everything were going to work on the individual plays. It was really, really impressive. From both, really, Kevin O'Connell and, of course, Josh Dobbs doing all that. He really, I think, played well in Arizona given the circumstance, and I just was so impressed in what he was able to do there for the Vikings. But I would maybe talk about both of those prior stories more, if not for CJ Stroud looking like not that just he belongs in the NFL, but that he can be a top 5 quarterback within the next couple of years easily. I mean, 470 yards, 5 touchdowns, 39 points in a 39-37 win, 46 seconds left, drives the length of the field and scores the game-winning touchdown, I think with 6 seconds to go. I mean, a rookie quarterback doing that is so impressive. And there's the whole stereotype of Ohio State QBs can't succeed in the NFL. I said it, I believe, in the very first video that I thought CJ Stroud maybe could be the quarterback to kind of buck that trend. He is sure working on it. I have been super impressed with him. Every game I've seen, there's just no play where it looks like he's really even uncomfortable. He looks exactly in his element. He looks prepared. He looks like he knows what to do. He can read the defense. He makes the right play. It has just been super impressive to watch, game in and game out. He has been, I think, the story of the rookie class, at least, for 2023. But quick recap of Week 9. Let's jump into Week 10 with an intriguing matchup on Thursday Night Football. The Panthers traveled to Chicago tonight to take on the Bears. Tyson Bagent is expected to start for the Bears. Justin Fields is slated to miss his 4th straight game. Meanwhile, the Panthers, after getting their win in Week 8, fell to the Colts. Bryce Young throws 2 pick sixes to Kenny Moore, and this is where it can get kind of muddy. The Panthers defense, for the most part, has been really good. Looking back at Tyson Bagent's performances over the last 3 weeks, there's been a lot more good than maybe you would expect just looking at the box scores, and I think that's where this gets interesting. Does a Bears offense that has struggled throughout the year manage to do enough against a Panthers defense that has been pretty good, but going against a Panthers offense that has been spotty at best? I'm gonna go with the Panthers here, and here's my reasoning. I know they're 1-7, and frankly the Bears aren't much better at 2-7, but hey, 2 wins better than 1 win. The Panthers do not own their first round pick in the 2024 draft. In fact, the Bears do. And no doubt the Panthers ownership all the way down through general manager Frank Reich and head coach, they don't want to give the Bears a really high draft pick. And an opportunity to directly influence that, I expect them to come out really firing here. My other reasoning though is, I think the Bears have maybe a little bit of an excuse, maybe a little bit of, still waiting to see what Justin Fields is, and he's been hurt these last couple of games. Whereas with the Panthers, they have to feel the pressure of having the first overall pick from last year in Bryce Young. They only have 1 win, and looking at the Bears on their schedule, this is a team that I think they can look at and say, we can beat this team if we put together a good enough game plan. It's a short week. I think Frank Reich cooks up enough that they're going to be able to beat the Bears. I just expect them to maybe end up with 2 or 3 wins this year, and I think this is a game they can look at and say they can win. It's a toss-up game for sure, but I just like those two aspects of it, specifically the draft positioning. I really think they go all out to try not to just hand the Bears potentially the first overall pick when it's all said and done. Kyler Murray may be coming back for the Cardinals. We'll get to that in a little bit. Going with the Panthers tonight on Thursday Night Football. I'm not hoping for clunkers, but from one maybe non-marquee matchup to another, over in Germany, the Colts are taking on the Patriots. 9:30 a.m. Eastern kickoff. This is a game that maybe doesn't quite rival Dolphins-Chiefs from last week. The Colts are coming off a win over the aforementioned Panthers, and the Patriots are coming off a loss to the Commanders. There's a lot of speculation right now as to whether or not Bill Belichick will even finish the season. Even more speculation about whether or not he'll be with the team post-2023. On the other side, there is optimism for the Colts. Shane Steichen has shown he is a really brilliant offensive mind. He's doing a lot with that offense. Down Anthony Richardson, Gardner Minshew has been, for the most part, playing well. A couple of games here and there that hasn't been so good. And I've said this at least twice this year, I think 3 times. This is the type of game that historically the Patriots would win. And I've picked the Patriots every time I've said that. Not the case this week. They just haven't shown that they have the horses. They haven't shown they have, frankly, the scheme. There just hasn't been enough to go off of to believe in the Patriots right now. I know they just beat the Bills a couple of weeks back, but I think going to Germany, going against a team that just has more to play for, I like the Colts to win this game overseas and send the Patriots, my goodness, to 2-8. It has been a while. But on to a big AFC North matchup. To get it kicked off in the 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff slate, Browns traveling to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Earlier in the season, in fact, the first game that Deshaun Watson missed this year, the Ravens beat the Browns in Cleveland 28-3. I think with the game being in Baltimore, and although Deshaun Watson is supposed to play in this game, the Ravens have just been absolutely throttling teams. I mean, 38-6 over the Lions, 37-3 over the Seahawks. They have been on a roll right now. And I don't think any amount of elite Browns defense or quality Deshaun Watson play is going to be enough. They're just firing on all cylinders. At home, in a pivotal AFC North matchup, I just expect the Ravens to bring it. I think they get the win over the Browns. Simple as that. Not going to overcomplicate this one. Picking the Ravens at home. Speaking of the AFC North, the Packers are traveling to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers in the third of their 3 games in a row at home. And I think this game could be really interesting. Both teams are trying to find their footing. The Steelers are still very much alive. They are, in fact, currently a playoff team if the playoffs were to start today. If the Steelers want to have any realistic shot at going somewhere in the playoffs or prove at all that they can compete, they just simply have to win this game. On paper, they're the better team. And just from what I've seen from every quarterback they've played this year, there are going to be openings in that defense. Jordan Love likes to go down the field, and down the field throws against the Steelers defense is one place that you can beat them. I think there's going to be 1 or 2 big plays to Christian Watson, maybe Aaron Jones down the sideline, something like that. But this Packers offense that has struggled fairly mightily throughout the season, I don't know that they're going to be able to put up enough points to just put the Steelers away. Outside of the Jags loss, the Steelers' losses have been to the 49ers and the Texans by 23 and 24 points. Every other game where they've even been able to hang around, they find a way to win, and I think that's going to be the situation here. Both teams have a bit of a two-headed monster at running back. I think the Steelers tandem gets the best of this matchup. I'm predicting Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris to combine for over 150 yards rushing and lead the Steelers to their 6th victory on the year. So, moving to potentially the marquee matchup in the 1 o'clock window, the 49ers visiting the Jags. Both teams are coming off a bye. The Jags are winners of 5 straight. The 49ers are losers of 3 straight. So, either these streaks continue or something's got to give. I really like the 49ers off a bye here, getting healthier, Kyle Shanahan having the time to really self-scout, see what maybe some of the other teams have been picking up on to finally slow down this juggernaut. I mean, going back to when Brock Purdy first took over, they were undefeated in the regular season until they lost to the Browns, and they haven't won a game since. On the other side of that, a full 2 weeks to scheme up ways to take advantage of what has been a porous Jags pass defense, I think that really bodes well for the Niners. I think if they're a true contender this year, they just simply have to win this game. They can't lose 4 in a row and go to 5-4. But on the other side of it, the Jags, as I mentioned, coming off a bye as well. Can Doug Peterson scheme up enough offensively to keep up? Because I do not think this is going to be a super low-scoring game. Probably not exactly a 45-42 type matchup, but I'm imagining both teams are north of 24 anyway. And the 49ers defense, supposedly, is really good. As of late, they've been kind of exposed. I think on that side of the ball as well, coming off the bye, they're able to kind of get things together, slow down what has been a pretty good Jags offense, but a Jags offense that does tend to turn the ball over. And I think that's going to be the difference in this game. 49ers win the turnover battle and ultimately win the game. Next, we move to the Saints taking on the Vikings. Now, the Vikings quarterback situation is still up in the air, at least as of this moment. Jaren Hall is still in the concussion protocol. So, as of now, it looks like Josh Dobbs is going to get the start. I think I'd probably pick this game differently depending on who starts at quarterback for the Vikings, but assuming it's going to be Josh Dobbs. As I mentioned, I've just been so impressed with him. Now, the Saints, on the other hand, they have been kind of quietly building a little bit of momentum. They're 5-4, winners of 2 straight, and now they go on the road to Minneapolis to take on the Vikings, and a team that 4 weeks ago was pretty much left for dead. The Vikings are now also 5-4, and they've got a lot of weapons. Now, Justin Jefferson is not expected to play. They've got a lengthy injury report going into this one, and it could really be an interesting matchup. Josh Dobbs has shown the ability to quickly pick up an offense, so I'm not too concerned about that particular aspect of it. Both defenses have been solid, and the Vikings defense, with Brian Flores there as DC, has actually improved considerably from last year. This is a tough one. I think I'm going to pick the momentum team, which right now is the Vikings. They have won 4 of their last 5, and I just think in a matchup where it's kind of 50-50, neither team really has an elite quarterback. I like the Vikings' offensive weapons and the way they've been playing on defense a little bit more than the Saints. I'm going to go with the Vikings. As I said, I really like Josh Dobbs, favorite quarterback in the league, and just what he's done this entire year really is giving me enough confidence. Let's go with the Vikings. 4 years ago, if you had said Texans-Bengals is a really intriguing matchup in Week 10 of an NFL season that could have major playoff implications, anybody would have laughed at that. But this year, it is the absolute reality. Texans traveling to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. The Texans are coming off a huge roller coaster game. As I mentioned, CJ Stroud throws for 470 yards, 5 touchdowns, leads a game-winning drive, 6 seconds left, throws the game-winning touchdown. And the Bengals have just been kind of slowly chugging along. They beat the Niners, they beat the Bills, they beat the Seahawks. They've just been building this momentum. Now, last week, I picked the Texans to beat the Buccaneers for one very specific reason. It is that they've been this kind of up-and-down team. They'll win a huge game, like the game, actually Jacksonville's last loss, where they beat the Jaguars. And then they'll kind of come out and lay an egg, like the game in Week 8 against the Panthers. So, I kind of am looking at this as that letdown game, and this is just not a team you can afford to come out flat against. The Bengals have been really picking up steam. Offensively, Joe Burrow looks way better. Now, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are both on the injury report, but provided that either of them end up going here on Sunday, I think that's enough for the Bengals to get the win. Their defense has played considerably better, and I think that is probably the most important factor here. I like the Bengals at home over the Texans. I'd love to see the Texans win. CJ Stroud has been a lot of fun to watch. This could be a high-scoring game, but I think the Bengals defense keeps that score down, and I think their offense is just too much for the Texans to handle. Man, it is becoming apparent as we go along here, there are very few games this week that I feel absolute about, and the final game in the 1 o'clock slate is no different. Titans traveling to Tampa to take on the Buccaneers. The Will Levis experience is all systems go right now in Tennessee, and the Buccaneers, after a really strong start, have just been falling off and they've been close in a couple of games like last week. They just haven't been able to close it out. The Titans defense isn't quite what it's been in years past, and we just saw the Buccaneers put up 37 against Houston. Looking at it, the Buccaneers defense has been solid, albeit allowing CJ Stroud, a rookie quarterback, to throw for all those yards and score 39 points. And Will Levis, he was able to move the ball decently against Pittsburgh. In the end, it wasn't quite enough. I'm looking at who the Buccaneers have actually beaten, and they beat the Vikings week 1, and the Vikings obviously were in a tailspin for the first 4 weeks. They were able to beat the Bears in week 2, and they beat the Saints, a division rival, in week 3. That doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in me, and the Titans, I think, do have some juice right now. There's optimism and hope around Will Levis under center for them. So I've gone back and forth on this. I was going to take the Buccaneers. I think it's in Tampa, but I'm still going to go with the Titans. Not a huge fan of it. Like I said, none of these games I feel absolute about, but this is one that I can see the Titans stealing a win, making it ugly, and just finding a way at the end. And that is a thing that Mike Vrabel coach teams are very good at doing. So let's go with the Titans to get the win on the road. Definitely a potential high-scoring matchup in the first game in the 4 o'clock window. Lions traveling to LA to take on the Chargers. Looking at this game, the Lions are coming off the bye, and I think that really bodes well for them. They lost huge to the Ravens. They were able to beat the Raiders, but maybe not as convincingly as we would have thought. The Chargers, on the other hand, they have actually kind of gotten some things together here. They've won a couple games in a row, but looking at their game on Monday Night Football last week over the Jets, they weren't able to get a lot of things going offensively. The Jets turned it over a couple times. There was a punt return touchdown. I believe Justin Herbert was under 200 yards passing. There actually wasn't a ton of offensive explosion there, and I think that plays into the Lions' favor. This is another one of those games where I think if the Lions really want to prove that they belong in the top 5 teams in the NFC discussion, maybe even top 3 teams, they gotta beat the Chargers, a team that just tends to find ways to mess up games against good teams. And after a game where the Chargers' offense really was a struggle for them, I think the Lions find enough of a defense to slow them down. I think this could very well be 34-31, something like that. But in the end, I think the Lions get just enough off the bye week to be able to beat the Chargers in LA. And we move into yet another game of difficult predictions. The Falcons visiting the Cardinals. Taylor Heineke is expected to go for the Falcons. The Cardinals, for the first time all year, are expected to start Kyler Murray. So, maybe not the best defense to kind of get thrown back into things against. The Falcons defense is probably a little bit better even than it looks. Teams that have struggling offenses, and at least at times this year the Falcons offense certainly has been that, their defensive ranks typically go down because they're on the field a lot. The Cardinals are, of course, 1-7. And there's a reason for that, and it's not just that they were starting Josh Dobbs and last week Clayton Tune at quarterback. I still think Josh Dobbs did a really good job. That rhymed. And that's kind of why I think I'm going to go with the Falcons here. They have had issues of their own. There is a lot of confusion about why they don't use Bijan Robinson in go-to-go situations. Man, just another tough pick, but Kyler Murray just getting his feet back under him, quite literally. I just think the Falcons are going to find a way to win this game. They're another one of those teams that they just kind of hang around 500, and I think this is kind of the rebound game. After losing that big one to the Vikings last week, I'm going to go with the Falcons here. I just don't think the Cardinals have the horses. I just don't think their roster is quite good enough, even with Kyler Murray coming back. Going with the Falcons in Arizona. I think I finally found one I feel good about. The Giants visiting the Cowboys. This is probably not a game we need to spend a whole lot of time on. Tommy DeVito, the long-lost son of Danny DeVito, that's definitely true, don't look that up. He is starting for the Giants this week. Daniel Jones, unfortunately, has been lost for the year. Tyrod Taylor is still on IR. This is another team with a defense you just don't want to be making your first NFL start against, especially when you are already the third string quarterback of a team. And I think we're pretty much just simply going to leave it at that. The Cowboys' wins have been, for the most part, games in which they're able to get a big lead and just have Micah Parsons and the whole D-line just pin their ears back and rush the quarterback. I expect it to be that type of game. The Giants probably try to muddy it up and keep it low scoring, but in the end, they're just not going to be able to keep up. Cowboys win this one at home. And for the last game in the 4 o'clock window, the Commanders traveling to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. A Commanders team that has actually, I think, already kind of exceeded expectations. There's a lot of optimism around the way Sam Howell's been playing. On the other side, Geno Smith has been struggling a little bit, not nearly as efficient as his 2022 outing. Despite that, playing in Seattle is a tough ask for anyone, let alone a second-year quarterback. And a second-year quarterback that only started one game last year, so basically a rookie with a little more off-season prep time. I'm going to go with the Seahawks here. Just a week ago, we were looking at them in first place in the NFC West, saying, could they win that division? And then they get blown off the field by the Ravens. I think, coming back home, playing in front of their fans, I just think they can't afford to disappoint again. So I think Pete Carroll and that coaching staff finds a way to beat the Commanders. But I think it could be interesting. I've genuinely been really impressed by Sam Howell. He may be the best quarterback from the 2022 draft class, as much as that hurts to say as a Steelers fan and someone who, for the most part, still defends Kenny Pickett. But on to Sunday Night Football we go. These primetime matchups this week are something else. Jets visiting the Raiders. The Jets are coming off a tough loss to the Chargers, but despite the score looking pretty lopsided, the Jets defense played really, really well. The Raiders are coming off a lopsided win over the Giants, and a win in which their defense played well. But keep in mind, they did play against Tommy DeVito for the majority of that game. Daniel Jones went out pretty early with that ACL tear. This is a tough one. This is a game that I think, Aaron Rodgers has been trying to come back this season with his Achilles tear. And if the Jets can't win this one, I'm not sure there's any point. But the Raiders, the way they looked, the way they rallied around Antonio Pierce, Aiden O'Connell playing at least decent football. Do I dare pick the Raiders? I said I wish I had picked them last week. I don't think I can do it. I want to do it. I want to pick the Raiders. But, this offense isn't exactly Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen. Although, Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs could make an argument, the quarterback position is definitely a little bit less than with Aiden O'Connell there. And the most important thing is, the Jets defense, for the most part, kind of shut them down. It was the punt return touchdown. It was multiple fumbles that set up the Chargers on short fields that really led to most of their scoring. I think if they can limit the mistakes, the Jets are going to be able to win this game. And as I mentioned, it's almost a must win if they want any chance at making the playoffs and any chance at Rodgers coming back and be able to make an impact, here in 2023. So I'm going to pick the Jets on the road in this one. I don't love it, but like most picks this week, it feels like a bit of a toss-up. I expect the Jets to bounce back from a rough performance and play a little cleaner football and find a way to win. And finally, Monday Night Football, Broncos visiting the Bills. The Broncos have been kind of rebounding a little bit after a terrible start to the season. The Bills, on the other hand, seem to be struggling even to tread water right now. They're 5-4. If the playoffs started today, they would be out of the playoff picture. This is another one of those kind of must-win type games, and it is in Orchard Park. The Broncos coming off a bye. Sean Payton with the ability to cook up things to maybe let Russ cook. That wasn't an intended thing, but I can't see it. I cannot see the Bills letting the Broncos come into their house and win in primetime. If that happens, I'd say you can write the Bills off for this year. 5-5, and missing so many key pieces on defense. I just can't see how they'd come out of that division and out of this conference. But I think they do win this game. I think they go to 6-3 and give themselves a fighting chance. Going with the Bills on Monday Night Football to wrap up Week 10. This video ended up being yet another long one. It feels like the further we get into the season, the longer these videos get. There's just simply more to talk about, more storylines, more injuries that become relevant, all that sort of stuff. And it's been an absolute blast to kind of, you know, venture a little bit into analysis and obviously the game picks and stuff. And I really appreciate you guys coming out, watching all these videos, interacting in the comments. It has been an absolute blast. But to recap our Week 10 picks, I've got the Panthers over the Bears on Thursday Night Football, got the Colts winning in Germany over the Patriots, Ravens over the Browns, Steelers over the Packers, 49ers getting back on the right track over the Jaguars, got the Vikings beating the Saints, the Bengals beating the Texans, Titans over the Buccaneers, Lions over the Chargers, Falcons beating the Cardinals, Cowboys beating the Giants, Seahawks over the Commanders, Jets getting the win on Sunday Night Football, and the Bills getting back in the win column on Monday night. So on that note, that is going to do it for this video. So as always, thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys think for the picks this week. I think the 49ers Jags may be the game of the week. Who you got winning that one? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.